In the Wall Street Journal, talks about how food banks are running out of food. Exactly when more Americans will need them. The most challenging situation I've seen in years, quote, cuts to food stamps and other federal programs, see more people go home hungry, end quote. Tyrone Bowman live. So let's talk about this article from the Wall Street Journal. And as I'm beginning to begin the story, if you're new to the channel and if you like it, think about subscribing. Appreciate it. All right. Sarah Aragon glanced at the growing line of people sneaking down Central Avenue, waiting for their allotment of everything from melons to pink beans to frozen catfish. She wondered how she'll keep feeding them all. This year, the federal government has canceled food deliveries and cut hundreds of millions of dollars in annual aid to food banks. For Aragon, the head of programming for Roadrunner Food Bank, New Mexico's largest charitable food operation, that has meant losing more than 7 million pounds of food she had been counting on. President Trump's MAGA bill, passed earlier this month, includes cuts to food stamps, now known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Food banks across the country were already straining under rising demand. Now they worry many more Americans will go hungry. Some food banks and pantries are pushing for more state, local, and private funding. Others are considering cutting back services and the amount of food they can distribute. Quote, it's getting to the point where we can't fill every single need in terms of food, Aragon said. I don't know how much more creative we can be to make things stretch, end quote. Food banks have seen requests for assistance from households, including those with children, jump sharply over the past few years, driven by the end of pandemic aid programs and the impact of inflation on grocery stores. According to a recent survey from Feeding America, a national network of food banks, over half of 162 banks reported demand rising this past April compared with April 2024. Earlier this year, the Agriculture Department canceled millions of pounds of shipments to food banks that were part of its emergency food assistance program for low-income people. A spokesperson for the department said it had only terminated an additional fund set up by the Biden administration that resulted in inflated spending on the program. Deliveries for the main emergency food effort continue uninterrupted, the department said. A separate pandemic-era program slated to disperse roughly $500 million this year to food banks to buy products, dairy items, and meats from local farmers was also cut by the Agriculture Department. The department said it had released hundreds of millions of dollars to food banks that had been previously promised as part of the program. Yet food banks say they are already facing the impact of federal cuts. Quote, this is the most challenging situation I've seen in 17 years, said Paulie Patcher, President and Chief Executive Officer of Long Island Cares, a food bank that serves New York's Long Island. We've been through Superstorm Sandy, COVID, but this is a self-imposed crisis, end quote. Patcher's organization faces mounting demand, operating 2 additional pantries over the past few years to add to its 4 others. In 2019, it recorded just over 59,000 visits from people needing food. In 2024, that number was more than 193,000. Earlier this year, a delivery of 250,000 pounds of food from the emergency food program was canceled, Patcher said. Patcher and other food bank leaders say the SNAP reductions included in the new budget bill will strain resources by pushing more people whose benefits have either been cut or reduced toward pantries to get food. Republicans say changes to the SNAP program will ensure people receiving the benefits are working as required. That's a lie. These people celebrated and partied and lavishly partied the destruction of people's lives that you put in power. Y'all voted for them. And to them, it's a game. As long as billionaires can make more money and get tax cuts, it doesn't matter. You know, the late Ronald Reagan said, quote, let them eat cake, close quote. Or crackers, whatever the man said, something like that. Republicans, these are the ones that people love to worship and idolize. The budget bill expands work requirement for SNAP, raising the upper age limit for able-bodied adults from 54 to 64 because they want to put them working out in the fields on the farms. That's what they want to do with them. Meaning those people will typically have to work for 80 hours a month to qualify for food benefits. Caregivers of children ages 14 and older previously didn't have to work to get SNAP assistance. The new legislation removes that exemption in most cases. These changes are set to go into effect immediately, while other changes that shift some of the costs of paying for SNAP from the federal government to the states will be implemented in the coming years. Why? Because the Republicans want to get back in power after 2028 because they're going to lose. And then they want to blame it all on the Democrats. They will conveniently forget that they signed this bill into law. They will conveniently forget how heartless and cruel that they were. They will conveniently try to sell you a bunch of horse manure, and they'll call it fertilizer. What you're not going to do, I'll say that at the end. A congressional analysis of an earlier House version of the bill found that roughly 3.2 million people would lose SNAP benefits in an average month over the next decade. Some food banks have seen a rise in people accessing their services who also get SNAP assistance, a pandemic-era program that provided households with the maximum amount of food benefits ended in 2023. According to data from the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, the number of people who use its pantries and were enrolled in SNAP jumped by 64% between the end of 2022 and the end of 2024. Zach Zook, Chief Strategy Officer for the Pennsylvania organization, said, the rise showed that even before the cuts, SNAP benefits often weren't enough. Families enrolled in the programs use food banks to fill the gap. Since April, the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank has also had 23 loads of emergency food assistance programs goods canceled. The food bank receives $117,000 a month from the Agriculture Department's local food program to buy local pork, chicken, and dairy items. Among other products from farmers, the last payment will be in July before its funds from the program run out, Zook said. The food bank has seen demand soar over the past several years. The number of times it served children nearly doubled between fiscal years 2019 and 2024. Some frontline pantries, the groups that actually distribute the food provided by food banks, are considering reductions in services to conserve resources. The Love Thy Neighbor Community Pantry in King George County, Virginia, recently drafted a contingency plan to prepare for the cuts. Among the options being considered, limiting the number of times people can visit pantries from weekly to biweekly, and reducing the 50 to 55 pounds of food each household receives per year. There are different dials that we can spin to try and keep servicing people in a reduced way, said Ryan Ragsdale, the treasurer and secretary of the pantry. In New Mexico, roughly 1 in 5 residents are enrolled in SNAP. Among the highest participation rates in the country, Roadrunner is ramping up food services and pushing state lawmakers to allocate more funding to offset cuts. Brian Hall, a burly former Army infantryman, is a regular at one of Roadrunner's weekly distribution sites. Hall, who's 60 years old, said a back injury has left him unable to work at all since 2018. He had been interested in working as a counselor for other veterans, but a recent series of strokes derailed that plan. Hall said he gets $1,400 in disability payments from the back injury and $140 a month in SNAP benefits. He still relies on Roadrunner each week to help get enough to eat, calling it a lifeline. And here's a picture of the brother right here. This is serious. Quote, I've moved to Albuquerque to help my parents because they're older and I wanted to give them a hand, but now I'm the one getting the help. He said, never in a million years did I think I'd be in this situation. Oregon said that this year, Roadrunner distributions ran out of food more often than they have in the past. We have to tell people we have no more left. The look on their faces when they walk away is like, what am I going to do now? Quote unquote, she said, I don't have the answer. So you still think some people still think it's a joke? It's not a joke. This is serious, and it's going to get more serious. Get it together, people. This is not a game. This is called reality. Touch the camera. So, this is not a game. This is called reality. Touch the game to get a edit, Mr. Monk. I don't know if you're still there or not, but I don't know what that means, player. You're going to have to break that down to me. I'm not touching the camera unless I know what I'm touching the camera for. It don't go like that over here. It ain't that kind of party. As I told you before, when I come on here, I don't come on here to make money. Of course, I'm a fan of Mozart. I don't come on here to make money. This channel's not monetized. I come on here to provide a service. Yes, I do like Mozart, and I listen to Mozart. Yes. You got any other questions before I hit the road and get ready for the next video? Man, right now I got news and stuff on my mind. You're gonna have to catch me another day, another time. Okay? Trust me, if I say I listen to Mozart, I listen to Mozart. If I didn't listen to it, I look into the camera and tell you I don't listen to it. You know? I'll also listen to my favorite rocker. You know who that is? Number 27 for you? Okay. Bon Jovi is my favorite rocker. I listen to him too. Rod Stewart. I listen to all kinds of music. Oh, Elvis. Okay, John. Elvis. All right, I hear you. Listen, y'all, while y'all on here, subscribe to the channel. Come on, hit a brother up. Help me get to 2,000 subscribers. Tell some of your friends. Share the video. All right, y'all, I got to leave right now. I got to get ready for the next segment. So, never surrender. Never quit.